What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. A lot of the conversation surrounding the console lock for Gotham Knights is still ongoing. And for some, it seems like it's become a huge deal breaker. For some others, they don't really care. There is, however, a little bit of data that I can pretty much maybe snag from content creator out here, extraordinaire, Slickmoth, and it shows us where some people stand. It doesn't show us where everyone stands, but I'm guessing that you probably maybe want to see what this, data looks like. So Slickmoth went ahead and took a survey on Twitter, and the survey has basically garnered about maybe 2,000 responses. 2,052 votes. And he asks, is Gotham Knights being locked at 30 FPS a deal breaker for you? 71.1% of people said no, 28.9% said yes. Now, there are considerations across the board. A lot of people have said things about other games being in a position where they're better optimized. Why does Gotham Knights not have that level of quality? These are very good questions. Now, here's the thing. My job here is to try my best to provide context around all of this so that some people who are interested can see what the technical issues may be. At the end of the day, sometimes I'm going to get maybe a dumb comment that says something about me wanting to be a shill or, wanting to work for Warner Brothers. Guys, that is a terrible proposition. Like, literally. I don't know if you saw, you having your YouTube channel is actually better than actually having a job sometimes. Trust me, because you get to call the shots and you're your own boss. Anyone who trades that for a job probably had a better job proposition. Plus, why would I want to work for Warner Brothers? Get the heck out of here. Let's move on to the technical side of things. Now, if you think about all of this, you go back and look at, say, the truth and the reality of the matter, I think we've come to a place where we have to admit that so-called next-gen consoles or current-gen consoles are in a position where they have actually reached their limit. We also have to admit that this game, Gotham Knights, and this is my personal opinion, I think the developers made the game the wrong way. Now, I say that loosely in quote because I want to be very careful because I'm not in their development process. But Unreal Engine 4 is a free, engine that anybody can pick up, and you can start looking at all the intricacies. You can watch hours and hours. You can learn tons and tons of information about this engine, how to use it, how it works from everyone, developers, all over the industry. The secret is no longer hidden as much as, a lot of developers will have you believe. It's actually much more of an open secret than anything else. And I'll explain why I think that this particular game was made in quote, the wrong way. First of all, let's look at what the the PC minimum specs are actually requiring so that some of you may maybe get a sense as to the technical limitations that this game is putting on the consoles. Now, not saying PS5 and Series X can't run it. I think some developers are actually alluding to the Series S being the limiting factor, but I don't think that's always 100% the likelihood. It is possible the Series S is not as powerful. So I went ahead and pulled up the Intel version and the NVIDIA version of the, minimum specs for PC to be able to get 1080p and 60 FPS. They're asking a Core i5-9500 processor. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's a 96 or 9500, but it is one of these two. Let's go with the lower one. And this processor is actually an expensive processor. No, I'm not meaning that it's an expensive processor in terms of price. I mean that it's an expensive processor in terms of it's requiring this amount of cores. This is a 6-core CPU. We used to run a lot of games at 60 FPS with about 4 cores. Quad core would do the job for you. I used to have an i5 6500 and I could run The Division on 60 FPS. I could run every Ubisoft game at that time at about 60 FPS for the most part. It wasn't a problem. But this game is asking for more. And so it's already giving you the clue that, man, this is more power than a game that was being made on the PlayStation 4 at one point. It's asking way more than it needs. So ideally, if this game was actually designed to still, if they had given the developers a mandate to say you're getting this game out on the PS4, they would have needed to cut out a bunch of stuff from their original project, which is why it brings me back to where I'm saying that I think this game was made in quote the wrong way. Look at the GTX 1660 Ti. This GPU is a 6 gig VRAM GPU. 6 gigs of VRAM for minimum requirements at 1080p is also quite expensive. Back in the day, the RX 480 was my graphics card. It is a 4 gigs VRAM graphics card. I paid $180 for it back in the good old days when PC parts had not tasted scalping and a, stupid, crazy medical issue in our world, and you could buy GPUs for very cheap. And that thing ran many games at 60 FPS without any problems. But this game is requiring that you get this particular level of graphics card. And so here we are, and this is already cluing you to tell you that, your current gen console, that machine, is going to be needing a lot of juice to be able to run Gotham Knights. Now let's visit that question, or that statement that I made, why I think this game was actually made, in quote, the wrong way. So Gotham Knights is a game that can be played offline. They've designed the entire game for you to be able to log in and just play the full game after downloading. But here's the thing. They've also decided to run the co-op in a way where your machine is locally pretty much running a lot of the processes. And I think that was the first big design mistake. Fundamentally, from the ground up, whoever designed this game and whoever was the lead gameplay programmer that agreed to this idea, they underestimated the limitations of the machines that this game was going to be running on. That's just my honest opinion overall, because they would have been able to take two different options. One option would have received a lot of backlash. The other option would have been heavily welcome. Option number one that would have received backlash would have been they would have had to run a lot of the game server side. And players hate to log in to play their video games, so they would have gotten a lot of backlash for that one. Number two would have been they would have just made the game a single player game without any of all of this co-op stuff, and then make a separate co-op mode like they did in Arkham Origins to be able to accommodate for that aspect of playing the game with peers and so on and so forth. Seeing now that there's actually a 4-player co-op even makes it much more of a no-brainer why they did not decide to follow this particular paradigm, and then they made the game like this. Now, here's the thing. I remember a few weeks ago, ladies and gentlemen, when I was calling, a few weeks and a few months ago, when I was calling for a demo. Folks, that was a chess move. Some of you made fun of me. You said you just want to play the game early. But that's not necessarily what my concern was. What do I care about playing a game early? I got a life. I got stuff to do. I got a family to take care of. So even the launch, I've had to organize my schedule, and still there are many contingencies that will probably not even make me be able to play Gotham Knights as I want to on release. But it was a chess move to be able to see if the developers were going to allow for people to get this game in their hands so that we could actually see something surrounding the game. If it wasn't for a leaker that actually put this whole 30 FPS thing out there, I'm not certain that we would have known until launch, which would have been a whole colossal issue. And I said this, and I stand by what I said. I think it's a good thing the developers actually came out and got in front of this and confirmed this. I've seen some other people that have said, well, let's not pretend. No. It's a good thing. Why? You got a week. Everyone that's making the decision, all 21 point something % of the folk that are saying that they're going to cancel their pre-order if it's a deal breaker for them, they now have an entire week to go ahead and execute on that being a deal breaker. That is a good thing. I'm not going to minimize that. It's also a good thing for the developers and their reputation. Now, yes, it is not the best thing because already people are looking at them really kind of weird, like, yo, this is kind of sus that you waited this long to tell us. But at least now they're not going into cyberpunk territory. In fact, they were standing at the precipice of the abyss called cyberpunk valley or whatever it is, and they were about to jump head on into it, and somehow that leaker saved their bacon from actually falling into that trap. So they've learned a very valuable lesson. If you're going to create a video game of this nature, there are ways to do it. This is why other studios like From Software, who made Elden Ring, which is also an open world game that has, a multiplayer co-op, is actually a tethered co-op experience. You see the difference. Gotham Knights is providing you with an experience where your guy can just run anywhere in an open world, and that costs money. It does cost money. It costs hardware. But in Elden Ring, you're very limited. You can't even ride your spectral steed when you summon somebody. Everybody now has to leg it. That's one thing that I've already shown you that the game is trying to go for, some kind of a sacrifice in terms of fidelity. If they could do it, they'd let you ride your horse everywhere. If it was possible, From Software would let you literally just go wherever you want in the world. But because they understand the way their game is designed and the limitations, they basically tethered you to your own co-op partner. If you summon someone inside a cave or at a boss fight, you guys are limited on where you can go. If, once you guys finish the fight and whatever and the boss is done, Everybody gets disconnected. There are just so many, controlled things that happen within that game that shows me why I think this game, Gotham Knights, should have been made at least in that particular design, or at least in that way. Because yes, they may be able to patch in the 60 FPS, functionality in this game, but I don't know where that's going to come from. This is an entire fundamental overview. It will literally take an entire team that's going to just sit down and every day come to work and start to clean up the entire game and start to work on a texture patch, making sure that all of the textures are, and the assets are audited very well. It's a very, very tedious process. Not saying that they're free from doing it. I'm just saying that it is exactly something that I got to see from a game developer conference, presentation that was done by a former developer from CD Projekt Red. That developer talked about their own job, which was basically to clean out the game and remove all kinds of junk assets to make the game run very well. So I'm certain that the game here that we have has basically suffered from all of these different things. If we want to look at, say, maybe another comparison, we could look at maybe even GTA. Some people have said GTA, it runs at 60 FPS and all the above. Yes, because GTA was made in, quote, the right way to be able to support all of that stuff. GTA was made to have a single player version and then an online version where you have to log into a server that is somewhat separate from all of this other rigmarole that's going on, because that way you can now control performance, run some things server side, and not have to worry about how your game is going to perform. Especially the fact that this is an RPG with visual effects and all kinds of different stuff. Yo, if this game wants to run at 60 FPS, you better get a machine to be able to run that bad boy, because all of these RPG elements here and there, they just don't seem to allow for performance. And I understand the Arkham games, they look better, but how many of the Arkham games were somebody throwing a Molotov cocktail at you? Now, for those of you who don't know, fire is expensive, right? Fire causes frame drops. Go watch any video game. Usually visual effects of some kind like mist and fire and whatever it is, for some strange reason, they'll make frames drop. Look at this. This is one of those things. I remember I learned this from The Division because we used to use a lot of fire type elements. And every time you threw like a seeker mine that blew up or something, the frames would drop. And I kept wondering. And then I saw it in the next Division game. And I started investigating a lot of other games and realized that visual effects are quite expensive. So here, the developers, they probably need to get their technical team to work. They need to fly in some of the best technical, advisors to come in and take a look at this entire game and see what it is that they can do. Because I believe it's possible for them to patch this whole thing up. But by and large, this game is probably also going to have some challenges on PC as well. We're not free and clear, PC players. I know we've seen some PC gameplay, but not until we start to run it are we going to see exactly what this game is optimized like. It could be that it's one of those games that's also fully optimized for the PC without any problems. Usually, we've seen those happen before. The Division 1 was well optimized for PC at 60 FPS, but on console, it only ran at 30 FPS, but that was a PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. And even still, that game was running a lot of its, tasks server side. Man, I can't imagine why they decided to make Gotham Knights this way. Talk to me in the comment section. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Thanks so much for your participation, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.